Hello and welcome. Today we're doing another ship build walkthrough where I take you from an initial concept all the way through to the completed ship. This particular one is going to be for the ship that I called the Barracuda. So the Barracuda I would classify as a cruiser, and it is designed to absolutely ruin somebody's day, um, while being highly maneuverable and able to lift off from planet and do make orbit that way as well. So where I started with this was I was fiddling around and I had the idea of getting some teeth. So then I started fiddling here, and let me turn my lights on. And my initial thought was to go ahead and put these teeth in and put in some artillery cannons. So here you can see I've got 4 artillery, and it's all lined up so that way there's a gap around each one of the muzzles, so that way they can shoot continuously through, and you're not at risk of hitting your own little teeth. Coming around the side, we get this little effect, and effectively we can be shooting out of the mouth. From there, I then went ahead and tried to figure out, how I wanted to make kind of fill out the rest of the kind of head area. I will note here um, that this particular ship is mirrored across the center line, so it is currently 8 blocks wide right here. And it is going to be an even number of blocks wide, which I'm sure will annoy a few people. Coming on over here, as I said, decided to go up a little bit, start forming kind of like a forehead type thing, come underneath, do a little bit of smoothing out there. And then I had a thought of, well, instead of artillery, could we do this with railguns? The answer is yes. Um, the tooth configuration remains the same, but you will note that the railguns are flipped. So this one is kind of upright, then upside down, and then upright. If I come in here, I can go ahead and use build vision, and you can see the projectile for it does barely miss that, but it goes all the way out without hitting the armor. So this little configuration, it won't blow its own mouth open. However, with that, notice how we basically come back. Let's see, we've got the teeth there, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's where the artillery cannons are. Well, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, 8 to get the railguns in. If you were looking for pure damage, the artillery probably actually is better. And if I were to go and try and rebuild it with artillery, I would probably just put an 8-pack in, and then come around here, and instead of doing these kind of bigger teeth, I would do smaller ones where I basically take just these little end pieces and have them up here and then down here, and you could still get the effect of having teeth while the artillery turrets still would not shoot them. And what I mean by that is I could do something like this. Let me grab my gray paint. So if I pull these out and then go back in here and grab my weapon. Um, do, 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 do. And then here, So you could do something like this, and then when we come in here, oh, wait, what? Oh, I see. This is not attached. Okay. There we go. Alright, and that would let you go ahead and still get a little bit of the kind of tooth effect. Actually, I think I'd probably do it like this. Um, and now you've got some staggered teeth with the artillery cannons shooting through it. Again, it's just kind of what your preference is for what all is filling that space, whether it's wide open like these artillery cannons are, or whether you have it more tightly packed where people can't just kind of like hide in here. Woo! Alright, so moving on then, for the next step, I started filling out kind of the shape that would go around and go back. And I was also looking at what I was going to do, kind of what this open area up here, and decided to start by just sticking in some gates. Thinking maybe you could do like a missile launch tube or something like that. In the end, I did end up deciding to go ahead and just kind of fill this with decoys. Because effectively you're always going to want the front of the ship pointed towards the enemy. Other than that, you can see I just kind of filled out the whole shell back here, and then for the next step I just took and extended that whole shell all the way back, and now you can see as I go in and back out. Then I started adding in some cannons. So I was thinking initially about putting these artillery on the side as kind of like the eyes of the fish, though I think that is better taken in the end by some thrusters that I put there instead. But I've got an artillery on each side, 2 on the top, and then 2 on the bottom. So that is 6 artillery so far, all forward facing. So you've got your railguns and your artillery turrets that are all shooting forwards. Next up, we come to these little things. So for it to look like a fish, and since it's got a mouth and I called it the Barracuda, the initial concept was to try to have some sort of fins. So this is another spot where it possibly would have been better to go ahead and have it be one wider, and be mirrored all along that center block, because now there is a little bit of the exposed conveyor that is underneath the artillery turret. So it is possible that you will end up in a situation where you could get the conveyor shot out. However, one of the things that I have been doing with these is I have been putting a cargo container directly underneath the cannon, whether that's artillery, gatling, whatever. So there is, even if you lose your conveyor, you still will have ammo there. And you can see that as we come in here, I have the cargo container right here, named the artillery cargo container, but I have not punched through for the fins yet, top and bottom. Alright, next, I decided to go ahead, since I was messing around with conveying anyways, and start figuring out where I was going to start throwing thrusters. So I put some upwards thrust right here in the front of the fin, thrust inside the fin, front and back, and that is also all sitting at the base of it, so you could lose the turret and not lose your thruster potentially. Some more thrust down the side, And then I started by sticking in a thruster right here, and then down here you can see I did the same thing. And initially I was thinking about trying to like have some sort of elevator that goes up and down right here. Eventually I removed that, but that was the initial thought with that design. Next, so basically for the first, how many blocks is this? Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So first 15, 16 blocks is kind of dedicated to the artillery, but then I put these little fins on, because, Barracudas have fins on their side. And I thought that this was a great way to go ahead and get some more point defense with the gatling turrets on the sides, because it pushes them out and gives them a better firing angle. So I have 2 gatlings on these little wings on the sides, and then when we come down to the bottom, you can see that there's 2 more gatlings on the bottom and 2 more on top. So that means that right now I have 6, 7, 8, 10 artillery and 8 gatling turrets on the ship. Coming inside, I was watching a channel called Get Brocked, where he was discussing some of the changes that they were doing with the Warfare update a while back, where if you shoot a cargo container that is full of ammunition, it explodes. This then meant that they had to change how they were designing their ships, and what they had settled on was they put the cargo container basically right below the turret, and then to ensure that that cargo container remains full, they are going to go ahead and put a conveyor sorter. This conveyor sorter, when I come in here, this one is for the artillery, has not been set up yet, but I would set it up to whitelist, and then I would search for artillery shells, add that, and then do drain all. So this means that you will not be able to pull other items out of your turrets. You will not be able to use them as little external inventory spaces, which can definitely be convenient when it's time to repair your ships. But it also means that you know that there's going to be ammunition for your turrets, and that when they inevitably explode, it's not taking out the rest of your ship. Now, whether you need this in a ship on this scale, I'm not entirely sure. But I decided to try it out and see how the implementation of it works. Alright, moving on to the next iteration of this ship. I had put in the hydrogen thrust, and I decided, let me go ahead and make this ship partially hydrogen and partially ion. So that way you can basically cruise around on your ion engines, and then you have the hydrogen thrusters available for combat maneuvering. So I went ahead and I stuck 8 small ion engines on each side. I also stuck 8 on the top on each side of the fins, and on the bottom. Here they are. So there's 4 on this side, so they're kind of partially up the hull. There is no extra ion thrust facing forwards at the moment. I do go in later and add a little bit more. And then also what I did here is I put a large ion thruster out each side, and then 2 top and bottom. Next, as I continue back, I started adding hydrogen thrust. So I put 4 large thrusters up and down, with the general concept of this ship has the most amount of thrust up and down. It can still go side to side, but when you're in combat, you're going to be wanting to face the opponent, and then if you need to wiggle, then or do like a death spiral type thing, you would primarily want to do up and turn. and that will go ahead and give you the most amount of lateral acceleration. Next, I want to point out that right over here, I went ahead and I stuck some mag plates on the bottom of this, so this bottom fin could function as landing gear. Finally, I started sketching out my ideas for the tail section, with my thought being that since all of my heavy cannons are at the front, I would like to go ahead and stick my important engines back here at the back. And that also gives me, the big fishy tail. So this was the initial concept, and then of course I went ahead and made sure that I went down the exact same distance as that, so that way I could use that as landing gear, and then also this one as landing gear. Alright, the next iteration of this, still have not done anything with the interior. I recessed these top and bottom thrusters some, just that way they're not directly exposed. I have these thrusters back here pointing forwards. I added another pair of gatlings on each side, so I have gone from 8, now I've got 10, 12, and then 2 more on the back for 14 gatling turrets. So this has good defense against lighter things. You can't come up behind it, but the heavy hitting firepower is all on the front of the ship. Next, for the back, I arranged all this whole little tail section here, and you can see that I went ahead and I stuck in 2, 4, 6, 8 large hydrogen thrusters and 4 large ion thrusters. So this thing has plenty of forward maneuverability. Moving on, the next variation, I went ahead and I just added a battery, and I started doing some conveying up of the tail section. I also temporarily added some lights, thinking maybe I could do some sort of light strips down it, but I eventually decided to remove them after this because I kind of liked it, but I was also, this costs a lot more PCU than just plain armor, and it's not adding something super spectacular for me. Coming back here, add a little bit of lighting, but, and this is the important part, I also came in right here, and since this is supposed to be for landing, you can see I added a connector, and I added an airlock down here. So I reworked this airlock a couple times, but you can see we can enter the ship, come on up, ish. There's no gravity in this build at the moment, so getting through this section is a bit of a pain, but you can see that we can go ahead and just kind of circle on up. I had to do it this way to maintain pressurization. So, once there's oxygen, this whole little section here is pressurized all the way up to here. And I will do that again in gravity on later builds. And then you can see we come up into here. This section is not completed, but I have gone ahead and I've conveyed up the back. I've added some small hydrogen tanks here and there going through. If I go to BICN, you can see I started putting stuff into the conveyor network. You can see I missed something here. I correct that later on. And you can see kind of all the conveyor networks in the ship. Additionally, I didn't note it earlier, but back here I put in a pair of gates, figuring that, this ship could go ahead and use some small support craft that fit in here somehow. And you can use that as either shuttles, or you need a little miner that can go get you some ice or whatever else. As long as it can fit through these double gates, you can make use of it. Additionally, at this time, I was still thinking about having like this little forward area. Maybe that be where a tugboat is. And you can see I also went ahead and I stuck some ion thrusters facing forwards. So I've got 2, 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 10 forward-facing ion thrusters. Which is a little light, but I was struggling to find additional places for further forward-facing ion thrust. So the end result is that is all the forward-facing ion thrust, and if you are just cruising on ion, you can either slow down slowly, or you can go ahead and take advantage of the massive number of gyros and just turn, which is probably going to be the faster way of doing it. Alright. So turning off the conveyor networks. Again, don't have the gyros or the gravity yet. But you can see that I have gone ahead and done a little bit more work in here. And just kind of like filled out the path on up to get up to this area, conveyored up this section, added in yet more hydrogen storage, decided that the way that, since I needed to have a footpath coming up here and going up that way, which eats into the space a little bit, what I would do is I would go ahead and have roof-mounted connectors. And the idea basically being that you could bring a ship in, as long as it fits in the door, and then either like angle it up or have like a top-mounted connector or whatever it is that you wanted to get your shuttles in and out with. Continuing on, you can see this one I did go ahead and link the conveyance for the entire ship. Fix that little area. I have more hydrogen here. All of it is all conveyed together with redundant conveyance going forwards. So there's, it's connected side to side, both in the back and across the engines, top and bottom. And also it's, those 4 conveyors going across in basically every area to get you all the way across. I did leave that empty. I meant to connect that up, but, missed the thing here and there. I corrected that later. And again, you can see this is where the railguns are. You have the sorter leading into the container, and then that is basically holding the ammo for the weapon that is directly attached to it. And you can see that a little bit more over there. Alright, moving on. Whee! And on to the next iteration. Still no artificial gravity yet. I did decide to go ahead and add in some side airlocks, and these are going to be entering somewhat near where the bridge is. And you can see I also started tossing in a whole bunch of gyros. Oh, I do have gravity, but I haven't set it up yet, so it's upside down. And we've got tons and tons of gyros. I also went ahead and fit in 4 jump drives, kind of in this little center section. Started it with some more gyros. Put in 2 large cargo containers, so this is going to be the main cargo storage for the ship. 2 large hydrogen tanks, hopefully set far enough back that they're not going, and deep enough in that it's going to be hard to just hit them directly, but this is a vulnerability to take note of. Moving forward, I also went ahead and stuck on a pair of refineries. Because of how it is connected, there's only space for 2 yield modules on it, or speed modules, whatever you wanted to put on it. If we were to cut in to get access to the rest of that, this area is going to be depressurized, you might, since I later kind of filled this area in with a bunch of armor, so you can't get to this, that might not be a big deal, but, and you could go ahead and just kind of keep the space depressurized. But I had initially been thinking that I would have some sort of walkway up to here, so that way you could then access this forward mini hangar. And my thought process here had been doing something like, you could do, player-built missiles, or you could like have a little tug or something like that that you could use to respond with. All right, coming on back. The next thing to make note of here is this is the reactor room. So there are no large grid reactors, but instead we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so 24 small reactors. We do have cargo access here as well as the air vent. These catwalks are needed to keep this space pressurized, because otherwise this is basically pressing up against the hydrogen engines top and bottom. Coming back here, again, we are just back into our little hangar area. This time now filled out. Come on. Close, door, close. Alrighty. Moving on. This is the point where I decided the best use for this front area actually would be to go ahead and stick some welders and decoys in. So I just kind of opened this area up to show what the concept was. And in the final version, this isn't the exact layout, but effectively what I have is this whole front section here is heavy armor with some blast door blocks as well. And then the decoys are right behind that with welders that can weld up the decoys as well as the blast door blocks, as long as you have enough iron to keep that going. Otherwise, the rest of the changes are internal to the ship. Still have not fixed the gravity on this yet. But effectively, you can see I kind of finished filling out this area here. And just started lining it with gyros. So many gyros. There are, I believe, over 100 gyros on this ship, which means that it handles very, very quickly for a ship its size. Probably overkill, but for the concept of this being a, little hunter-killer ship, that always wants its front pointed towards the enemy, I thought that was appropriate. Coming on over here. Let's see here. Nope. So I am technically in artificial gravity. So let's go ahead and enter in here. Turn the jetpack off. There we go. And now we can get the full walking tour of it. Because basically the difference between this one and the next one is the paint job and setting it up. Okay, that being said, there's no real reason to do this. Instead, just look at the final result. Because again, I just try and get everything set up, and then I go and I paint the ship, see what I think it looks like in the end. So let's go ahead and look at the final version. Alright, we have entered the ship, and if I look in here, you can see that the total mass is 6 million kilograms, or 6,000 tons. There is enough thrust to basically hover on Earth-like gravity with about 8,000 tons or 8 million kilograms. So this thing can, supposedly, if your cargo is empty, lift off from planet. We will test that after this. So this is the entrance. This area is on, the fan is on depressurize. And then we can come on up here, open this door, close it, and now this area is pressurized. Coming on over here, this was kind of some dead space, so I turned it into a pair of bathrooms. Then we get the full walk up the stairs. And you can see this is where the fan is on this level. Over here, this is the ion thruster. Back here, that is going to be airtight, but other sections of it are not. So that is something that you have to watch out for. And then we get up to here. This little section, again, airtight, but this is the area under the hangar where we continue going up more stairs. Over here, I have access to the hangar. You can see I kind of went with a gray interior, blue exterior. There are blast door blocks along the top, and this is basically because small grid thrusters do not damage blast door, even if it's like directly placed up against it. However, this is only small grid to large grid blast doors. Large grid thrusters damage large grid blast doors. Small grid thrusters damage small grid blast doors. Splitsy did do a video on this showing this effect. So that's the primary reason why I have this set up this way. Other than that, don't bump the hydrogen as you're parking, please. Just do everyone a favor. Other than that, we can come back in here. There's another door right here, and this is leading up into that reactor room that I showed off earlier. And then there's another door here for easier access to the hangar. Moving out of the reactor room, we get into the primary living area, and you can see I can turn off my lights now. And then right over here, you can see that I have the full suite of AI blocks in case you want it, a remote control, 2 action relays if you wanted to set them up for opening and closing the hangar doors via the antenna. There are programmable blocks, 6 of them on each side. There are some event controllers underneath the airlocks which are controlling these 2 airlocks. They're basically set up so that way if you open the outer one, the inner one turns off, and vice versa. There is no similar programming for the tail one, so you can still vent your ship if you feel like it. There are additional event controllers that you could use for that if you wanted to. I just did not set them up. Up here, this is where the gravity generator is and the projector block, so we can project any damage to the ship. Coming down here, you can see I have a cryotube on each side. Gyro is hiding back there. I have some automaton timer blocks, and you could probably go ahead and cut out some of this armor plate for some more automation if you so desired. Coming down here, I have 2 more cryo tanks, so that's a total of 4 on this ship. We've got these stairs that are coming up to these upper doors, or we can just take these stairs up here. And this is kind of like the little general living area. We have an armory on each side. Here's our kitchen, little eating area, and then this space is left open. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do here without, trying to avoid blocking the flow of traffic, because you need to come up here and then go over to here or here. So sticking some couches in here seemed not the best idea. Speaking of which, then we come up these stairs and we enter into the CIC. So we've got the CIC right here. This is where we can control our ship from. I will go back to that in a little bit. Locker, air vents, cargo access. Over here is the medical room. So med bay, some other random medical things. And then this door also leads back down. Got a pair of desks here, and then these little doors are little cabins. Got bathroom, shower. If anything needs the shower lights mod, it's this one. But it's just really hard to make this work. I suppose I could swap this out for like a corridor light because this is, private. But that would be kind of like a decision that you'd want to make yourself. Let's see. Coming on in there. Alrighty. So that finally brings us to the CIC. I do only have the one control station for this ship. Arguments could be made that a second one should be placed somewhere, but I just couldn't come up with a good place where. Now, for where we are, if you see the green circle, that is basically where we are on the ship. So just right around those side thrusters, and we are, slightly forward and to the right of this fin. So you can also see my paint job, see the copious quantity of thrusters that I put on the bottom, on sides, to make sure that this thing could actually lift off. I had to go in and add a whole lot more hydrogen thrust to make sure that it could take off from planet. So I am going to be testing to make sure that that is actually going to happen. Next up, the controls. So control bar 1, we have kind of just general stuff. So I've got the jump drive, reduce and increase range, jump, turn the ion thrusters on and off, turn the hydrogen thrusters on and off, turn the reactors on and off. I will note here that this ship does not have any other power sources beyond the reactors. There, I believe, is one battery located somewhere on the ship, just to, make sure that the conveyors and stuff all work. But you do need those reactors online to be able to make this ship function. Next up, we have the mag plates. Then we have the bottom-mounted camera. So this is going to be pointing down. It's the one right behind where the connector is. You can kind of see that right there. And then finally the connector lock-unlock. On toolbar 2, I decided to start fiddling around some. This is all the AI offensive blocks, where you can turn it off and on, set the attack modes, choose the target priority, change it between weapons system, or is it targeting weapons, propulsion, power. So basically 1 is off and on, 2 is targeting enemies only, 3 is targeting enemies in neutral, 4 is targeting the closest, 5 is going to be targeting the largest, 6 is targeting the smallest, 7 is targeting weapons, 8 is targeting propulsion, and 9 is targeting power systems. So this should be things that you can go ahead and you can click these buttons, and then your AI will control your turrets to go ahead and target those things. If you have the AI off, we can come on over here to this one. So this is toolbar 3, where we can have 1 is targeting neutrals on and off for the artillery, 3 is the same thing for gatling, and then 2 and 4 is cycling the gatling and artillery through these various subsystems. 5 is a very important one. This is your decoy welders. So right up in that kind of forehead of the ship is where all the welders are and where all the decoy blocks are. So hopefully if you get in an engagement and you are following the rules of the ship, which is point the front towards the enemy, then You've got that right there. 8 and 9 are opening and closing the hangars in case you wanted to do that manually. You can see I have that set up with a timer, so it is going to go ahead and try and depressurize the hangars first, wait a little bit, and then it is going to try and open it. There we go. Since I am in creative and my oxygen tanks are full, it had nowhere to put the air, so it couldn't actually depressurize it. And then 9 is going to go ahead and close the gates and then set those vents back to pressurize the room. Then when we come to 4, we get into the railguns. So the way I have this set up, if we press 1, that is going to give us control of all 4 railguns at once. Boom! There we go. Then I have them listed as outer left, inner right, outer right. So if you are pointing like this and you do 2, it's going to be the one furthest to the left. 3 is going to be the next one over, and you can go ahead and fire them all individually that way if you so desire. Next up, looking at the front of the ship, you can see I went ahead and I slapped 4 different cameras on the front. They are all exposed, so expect them to get shot off, but you can use this to go ahead and help snipe. So I've got the top left camera, the top right camera, the bottom left camera, and the bottom right camera. Alright, so let's give that a minute to go ahead and finish getting those turrets ready, or those railguns ready. And now you can see number 2 fires that one. And you can also see now how it is shooting past the teeth of the Barracuda. There we go. Alrighty, so that is our ship. So let me go ahead now and copy that on over, and let's take it into a demonstration system and see how it performs. Alright, so here we are on the Earth-like planet, and let's go ahead and paste that in right there like that, and it is flying. Woohoo! Alright, so let's take this bad boy in for a landing. Alright. So it is perfectly fine flying around. It can get forward acceleration really, really fast. And then it can bring it down. Gently, gently, and then if I were to go over here, you can see I could line this up with, you know, a target of some sort to make sure that I lock to the ground. There we go. And I I have a small concern. Let's just check to see if I busted up my rear airlock by doing this. Nope, everything is all good in here. So if I was landing on like an actual platform, you know, I could have gone ahead and gotten that a little bit straighter. But for just landing somewhere randomly on the ground, seems to work fine. Alrighty. Next up, let's go ahead. Make sure I transfer all the ownership to me. There we go. Alright, so now let's go ahead and do liftoff. There is no automatic liftoff programmed, so it's just a matter of taking off. And you can see that without anything in the cargo, liftoff is not a problem. I can also go ahead and make use of all of these thrusters to go to orbit even faster. And there we go. I'm a fishy. Woohoo! But you know what? Since I'm here, let's just, you know, test out those railguns, right? And here you can see that I definitely have a lot more trouble slowing with my forward thrust, so I do need to maneuver the ship some to be able to slow down when compared to my upwards or my forwards thrust. Or my going forwards. Alright, we are within 2K. So alright, so this is the top left camera. And, ooh, it's a missile turret. Let's go ahead and boom! Oh yeah. And then I can also come on over here. Target enemies and neutrals and just see if my artillery want to munch on anything, but it looks like I was able to snipe everything with those railguns. So there's no additional turrets that it wants to shoot. Alright, so let's go find something more appropriate for a warship of this size to shoot at. Alright, so if you are playing an unmodded game, this ship is massive overkill, But here we can go ahead and see how it's going to swat a, let's see, what is the name of this? Not the wrecked Corvette. A pirate cutter, that's what it is. So, taking a look here, we can see it from a distance. I have my AI on, and let's go ahead and just turn those welder blocks on, see if it's going to survive long enough for that to matter. And well, I could go ahead and be judicious in my usage of railguns. I want to see if I can split it in half in a single volley. That seems fun. And as you can see, it is very easy to go ahead and woo! Able to go ahead and reverse at a speed that he struggles with. Bandit. Let's see if my rail or my yeah, so much for the bandit. You can see I am nearly maxing out my power while I am maneuvering and the railguns are recharging. Alright. And oh, I missed. Alright, well, let's just let the artillery take care of it then. Or we can spin wildly if we really want to make sure that we don't get hurt much. Oof, I think I hit the hydrogen tank. There's not much left of this thing. With a combat deployment with this, I think that the number one thing that I would look at changing would be to go ahead and add some more batteries to this, just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. And it's gone. Alright, so random encounter with SPRT aside. Oh no. They broke one of my thrusters and damaged my heavy armor. And that's about it. Yeah. No, I think they also went ahead and broke some additional armor off that was surrounding that thruster. Oh, Two thrusters down. Two thrusters down. Yeah. This thing is massive overkill for vanilla. So let's go ahead. Spawn another one in, because, you know, we just went to the repair yard. And now let's go ahead and check out that Factorum signal. Jump. Let's turn this down all the way. Unidentified signal. 37 away. We'll aim a little bit above it. Alright, so unidentified signal 3K away. And looks like this is high profile escort. Woo! He's got a railgun. I've got it. So, high profile escort definitely does not stand a chance. Kind of wish that was the Factorum warship, but there's not much left of this. It's still trying though. Alright, let's give it one more shot with the railguns and then call it a day. And that's gone. Oh, that is so satisfying to watch. Alright, and the rest of this encounter is pretty minimal. There's no other warships that come. Um, but let's go ahead and take a look at what that escort did to us in the sun. So it took out one artillery turret, um, dented the front, and that's... Oh, took out a forward thruster. Yep, that's it. So, yes. If you're playing vanilla Space Engineers, this ship is probably more than sufficient for basically anything that you'd want to do. Um, Again, at 32,000, almost 33,000 PCU, it is going to be a lot for, probably too much for online play, um, at least on dedicated servers, because my understanding is that they usually limit you to 20,000 PCU. But you could definitely go ahead and combine forces with somebody else and take this out, see if you can pull a shark instead of a barracuda. And whoever you team up with will still be able to dedicate some PCU to, like having some sort of like mining ship or something else. Um, for non or for dedicated servers that don't have such strict PCU limits, this thing will be a monster that goes through and hunts everybody down. Um, Overall, if I was gonna make any changes to it now that I've played with it some, I would probably go ahead and stick in a bunch of batteries, just so that way it's got an easier way to recharge itself, or to keep going at max power while you're maneuvering and you've got the guns. That being said, if you're maneuvering in combat, the ion thrusters aren't the main thing moving you. Um, Other than that, I'd probably look at trying to have some sort of pathway going forward from the CIC area. Okay, now that I have recovered from the kittens knocking out my headset again, yeah, so I try and get some sort of pathway forward from the crew area, which again is sitting somewhere right around here, up to about here, so that way you could access and repair the assemblers and refineries if you needed to. That being said, if there's been enough damage to really damage them, um, oh, come on, cats. And there goes my keyboard. Alrighty. Well, anyways, thank you very much for watching. And I will see you next time, hopefully without the cats ruining everything on my PC again. Have a good one.